This is the Roar webinar series. I'm Josefina Bonilla, and with me I have Daniel Guttierez. And for the month of August, Daniel is going to join us every Tuesday, because I think there's a lot for us to talk about. How are you doing with setting up your...
I am setting it up. So I have to say, us old folks, she was offended by that. So
I was.
Give me just a sec here. I'm going to share it to all my pages so that people can follow us live. And I have a few. So just give me a sec here. One more.
Super. So while you're doing that, I'll talk about what we had talked about before going on, and that was this idea that a lot of people are kind of searching. This is a time for them to take a step back and search and try to figure out what they're passionate about. What is their sole purpose, if you will. And many of us, I too struggle with this, we're in that space. And how do you go from where you're at to find some idea of what that looks like, maybe some exercises? What do you find that you're hearing that from folks, Daniel?
Yeah, I think first we have to identify. You said something that's very important. I'm glad you said it. And that is sole purpose. I think is different than just purpose. And I'll give you the example of me coming out to Peru and being at Catalina here in the Sacred Valley of the Incas. I get asked very often, well, how do you know it's the right thing? How do you know that this is what you were supposed to do? And my answer is always because my soul smiles when I walk my property. I feel that inner peace and that inner contentment. You know, I know that for many years in corporate and working in the United States, there was a hunger for something more, and there was never anything that satisfied it. It was like going from one project to the next. You know, corporate has a way of kind of putting you into a project-based type of event. And then when it's done, there's another one right after that. So there's no satisfaction. When I came here, I could just feel my body tingling with joy. That's a soul purpose. That's the soul saying, you brought me where I wanted to come to. Now, whether that's part of something that's in this life or past life, it's part of who you are. And I think what's happened with this pandemic is that people are being forced to go, do I really even like what I'm doing? Do I even like who I am? And why am I doing it, right? And why am I doing it? So I think that we have to get out of the habit. One of the things that you can do is that one of the habits we get into is telling everybody what we don't want. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want that kind of girl. I don't want that kind of guy. That doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form. I would encourage you to sit down and write down what do you like? What makes your soul sing? Was it singing? Was it playing guitar? Was it working with children? You know what I'm saying? Really getting down to that feeling.
I feel, Daniel, that many of us don't know how to even answer those questions honestly.
Right.
Like, we may not even know what we want. And in order to find out, and you can help me here, is in order to find out what we want, we're kind of dismissing all the things we don't want.
Right.
How do we change that kind of mentality and shift gears and say, what would I like to do? What brings me some
joy?
Yes.
Joy. So let's do a little exercise.
Just to be clear, folding socks does not bring me joy.
Doing what?
Folding socks.
Definitely that does not. Yeah, that's why mine just get thrown back in the cupboard. So listen, let's do a little project. Let's do a little exercise here. So I want you to just think back.
Point your notebook. Do people need something to write?
No, just think back. I want you to think back to a time in your life when you were, let's just say, between the ages of 5 and 20 years of age. Think of an activity that you absolutely enjoyed doing. Think about that. Now, I'm going to give you what mine was. I used to love to ride my bike. I used to love to ride because I would get on that thing, and it was like the only place I found freedom. I grew up with 6 brothers and sisters. So being on a bike, and it was just like back when I had hair, wind in my hair, doing the whole bike thing. And the second thing I used to enjoy doing is flying a kite.
Oh,
Right? Now, what happens with life is that we get really, really busy. And the things that we enjoy most, the things that bring us absolute joy, get fallen by the wayside, either because we're busy, we have children, we have mortgages, we have pandemics, we have all these things that show up in life. Now, think back to that thing that you just thought about and answer this question. When was the last time you did that thing that brought you so much joy? It could be playing with G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip, paper dolls. I mean, what was it? When's the last time you did that? When I did this exercise for the first time, it had been 20 years since I rode a bike and almost 20 years since I flew a kite. And so the exercise was go do that and see how you feel. When you get on that bike, or when I remember going to Walmart and buying a kite for $1.99 and going out to the beach. And I felt like a 5-year-old, and I'm letting the string out on my kite, and I could see all these adults looking at me. And I'm sure that they weren't thinking, oh, he looks stupid. They were thinking, I wish I could do that too. But here's the analogy I want to get to. It wasn't until I let out all the string in my kite that I felt joy and peace. And I thought, wow, why did it take me so long to do something that gave me so much joy? And so what I'm asking you to do is to find the little things first, like riding a bike, like taking a walk, like whatever it may be, and let the string out in your kite as far as it'll go. And you'll start to really recognize those things that give you joy. We have to start small. We have to start in the little places so that we can start to realize that there are many things in our lives that bring us joy. But we get into this, I owe, so off to work I go. And we just completely lose touch of who we are. Now we're in a pandemic where we're spending more time at home, or maybe working from home. And all of a sudden, life isn't as glamorous as it used to be. So what's life worth living if you're not doing something you enjoy and that your soul's not happy? Now, for some of you that are listening, these are drastic measures. They're drastic measures because we don't want to, yeah.
I'm sorry, before we go on, if you have a particular question, instead of raising your hand, if you don't mind putting it in the Q&A section, that would be great. And we would be, or in the chat section, we would be happy to answer those for you. Thank you. Sorry, Daniel, go on.
Yeah, so
you were talking about that. I was thinking, and as you know, I temporarily moved to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And for that same reason, I was looking for that which brings me joy. Right. And for me, being near the water, I hate being in the water, but I love being near the water. So every morning I go and take a walk near the ocean, on the beach, and that brings me a lot of peace and a lot of joy. So I totally get, and the first time I went, I was thinking about you in your kite scenario, and I thought that's exactly how I felt when I was there. It's like, oh my God, I'm coming home. This feels good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was getting at. Get in touch with the joy. We've forgotten that part. We've forgotten how to get in touch, and that's why I said that little exercise will help get you connected with joy, with what it feels like to feel that. For some people, and I want to say this because for some people, they're convinced that there's no way they can rewrite the chapter of their life because they're stuck in a job or they're stuck in, and I was just talking about this the other day. I said, I remember being working for Best Buy, and I would never leave because they kept giving me more stock options. And that's how they kept me trapped, right? And then one day I just broke loose and said, forget it, I'm going to get out of here. And that was the greatest, because really it's all a facade and an illusion, especially in our volatile world. I mean, a stock of nothing is nothing, nothing from nothing is nothing. So at the end of the day, why work our entire lives so that we take the money that we made trying to buy back our health because we didn't take care of it, right? And so today when we talk about purpose, I think it's important to really look at, and by the way, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that people quit their jobs or they stop doing what they're doing, but do it in increments. Do it little by little. See if there's something that your talent will allow you to express yourself more fully in a job that you enjoy, because you enjoy. Zig Ziglar once said, if whatever you're doing today, you would not do for free, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Mm.
Like I do this, I would live here. I mean, I guess it is for free. I haven't had an income since December, but I love being here. I love being here. I'm okay,
And
right?
to your point, we are doing these webinars at no cost.
Right,
But I love doing these. I
right.
enjoy bringing people on to share their stories. You're right. That's a great analogy. If you can't see yourself doing it for free,
You're in
then
the wrong job.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're in a job just above broke. That's about it.
But a lot of us have mortgages. Thank God I just sold my house last month,
Okay.
so I don't have a mortgage like that anymore. But most of us have mortgages that we have to deal with, and we have school bills and kids, and as you say, work to pay the bills.
But I think you have to create a plan, though. I mean, Josefina, you knew many years ago my plan was when my son got out of high school, I was going to make a move
Yes,
because I could be stuck in the same situation with, mortgage and car and my son's university. And there's all this stuff that comes up about life. But let me tell you something really sad. If your children become the source of your anchor, you will resent them later in life. And that's a tragedy because you'll resent the fact you never got to live. You'll resent the fact that you never chased your dreams. You'll resent the fact that you got stuck. And that's all an illusion. It's not true. You're stuck because you want to be stuck. We can begin to make those baby steps to move toward whatever brings us joy. The most difficult thing I did was leave my son in Long Beach. It was the hardest thing, and it still is today because it'll be a year and a half before I see him again because of the pandemic, and it has been heavy on my heart. But the one thing that I always think about with my son is how could I encourage him to follow his own dreams if I was unwilling to do that myself? We have
exactly.
to show our children with action, right? So going back to where do you find that sole purpose? I think we all know. I just think we're so scared of it that we don't want to fail at it, that we don't attempt it.
Plus, I think we're dressed with the accoutrements of our success, right? Everything or awards or whatever. And that is like, oh my God. There was an episode, and I've talked about this before, on this old show, Ally McBeal. And Ally
Yes.
was walking down the street. Did I mention this to you already?
No, but I used to watch it all the time.
So she's walking down the streets of Boston, and she's got this really cute suit on, and she says, I'm giving up on the law because it just doesn't serve me anymore. I am not the person I thought I was going to become. But the thing that stopped her, the one thing that stopped her, was she asked herself, where am I going to wear these cute suits? And sometimes that's what we ask ourselves. If I am not this executive, if I am not this,
Who am I?
who am I? I won't have this huge house. I won't have the clothes. I won't have whatever those accoutrements are for yourself. And you have to get rid of those. How do you do that? How?
Oh my gosh, that's a chapter in my new book. It's called Radical Detachment. And I had 17 $2,000 plus suits when I left a year ago. Custom made, beautiful shoes. I mean, you're talking about this. I know what Ally was going through in that moment because I was like, who am I when I'm not in a suit? Who am I when I'm not, my custom, my cufflinks, that persona that we put out there for our work. And the truth is that I had to get rid of all that. I actually ended up giving it all to a church. I mean, can you imagine a bunch of homeless people walking around in $2,000 suits, but I had to be willing to strip down to nothing, really strip down to nothing. The most difficult thing I did, and talking about accolades, how we got them hanging all over our offices, right?
Yes.
I literally I asked my son, is there anything here that you want from dad? If I were to die today, what would you do with this stuff? He said, throw it away. I know that because my mother passed away and half the stuff that was there was just meant something to her, not to me. So I took everything, Josefina, everything. I took both passports. I took all my awards, which I had enough to fill up 4 offices. I had all these accolades, um, pictures, baby pictures, family pictures. I shred them all. I shred the whole thing. I got rid of everything. I'm now not suggesting that you have to do that, but that was my path. And the reason I needed to do that was because if I really wanted to be happy, I needed to find out who Daniel Guttierez was. Who am I outside of a suit? Who am I outside of that polished person, president, chairman, whatever it was that I was called along the way? Who am I? Because that's why we're struggling. We're struggling with that identity, that whatever I was yesterday doesn't serve me today. And if it's not going to serve me today, then who am I? That's the most difficult question to answer. Who am I? But without taking a step, without making a forward movement and beginning to detach from all of the stuff that we think we are. We think we're the suits and the accolades and the stock options and all that, but we're not. And I think that this pandemic has forced us to take a deep look inside because our world is changing. Our kids are growing up with masks on their face. All this stuff is all changing, and we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to make those changes now because we as a world couldn't be any more broken. We're broken. So from that broken place, because never in the history of our world has our entire globe been in this broken place all together.
Yes.
We're all together. It's not just you. It's just not me. People are losing this and that. We're all doing it. We're all in the same spot. But who's going to take that opportunity and grow from that and say, you know what? I'm done doing that. Like Ally McBeal, I don't want to do law anymore. And maybe these suits aren't me. I mean, look, I'm wearing a vest and a t-shirt. You would never see me dressed like that, right? And I walked the property, and someone said this to me the other day. This gal that came over, she says, well, I only see you in sweats. You talk about these suits.
I think you're making them up.
Yeah, I'm like, this is just my life today. My life is not defined by the stuff that I have at all. It's not defined by my clothes. It's not defined by, because I don't have a car. My son's got my new car. I'm walking, right? I just walked to town and back. It's really interesting when you strip that stuff away. We start to remember what our parents used to do and how we had so little and we made so much out of it. And so this is all goes back to what we started with, and that is, what's the purpose of our life? We have to start really peeling that onion and getting rid of things, just like you did. Go to Fort Lauderdale, getting rid of the house. That had to be hard. People identify with a house like it was the only thing in the world. Our social constructs, the constructs that our parents grew up with, do not exist. They don't work. They do not work. So we have to create a new social construct on what is acceptable in society for us to be happy. And we've definitely learned it's not our stuff.
Yes. And it's a process. It doesn't, to your point, you don't do it overnight.
No.
You go through this, I felt like I went through an identity crisis after I left color, after I started Right Media. And then, who am I outside of all these things that I had worked so hard to build up? Right. And then letting all those things go because they really, to your point, they didn't define me any longer. That's not who I was. I couldn't relate to that person anymore.
Right.
But so saying that, right, if we go back and think about our childhood and those things that made us happy when we did, now there's a disconnect between when you're a child and now, because now you don't know what makes you happy.
Well, but that's the whole point of the exercise, is to feel that. To feel that. What's it feel like to fly a kite on the beach? You haven't done that. Whatever it was that your thing was, what does it feel like? I just want you to tie to the feeling of absolute joy and absolute soul connection. That's the beginning point. From there, we can start from there. We can start to move from there and look at your life from segments and see where you're happy. And again, I am not suggesting that people just go out and quit and they don't have their jobs, and they don't have responsibilities, but I am convinced that we can all have joy and peace and tranquility in our lives if we choose to have that, even in our current world today, we can, as a matter of fact, it's almost imperative or we'll perish. There's no way. There's just this new way of seeing life. We have to transmute, not transform. We have to let go of those things that no longer serve us completely and move on to whatever's next. Or the world is really going to suffer some tragic times if we can't do that. So individually, if this is resonating with you, take that step, do that little project. You'll think it's, I always give people the simplest stuff to do and they go, oh, Danielle, please. I'm going to just do it. And you're going to understand what I was saying.
Now, how do you get over the feeling of feeling silly doing these things?
Well, you do feel silly because you feel like a child, and that's kind of the whole point, right?
Right.
And then you have the person that, feels like, well, I remember once I was coaching this guy and his boss hired me, and he said he was doing like, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 a month in sales, commission sales. And when I sat down in front of him, he says, so what the heck can you teach me? I'm the top salesman in the company. And I said, really? I said, you do $20,000 a month in commissions. That's pretty good. Well, if you don't get the 21, you're fired. And he went, what? I said, see, nobody's indispensable. You have to be willing to grow. You have to be able to learn. And anyone, I said, we could just as easily hire 3 people for your salary and just get rid of you. And he was like, whoa. I said, change your perspective. Now let's get to work.
No, I think that, sometimes we feel trapped. And I like this idea that you have of asking yourself, what was it that used to make you?
Just start there. Be silly. Be silly. Go out and get I laugh about this G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip. Whoa! I used to have a little G.I. Joe. Whoa! And I would push his little belly and he'd go, whoa, whoa. Loved it. Loved it. I'm probably aging myself, but oh well.
No, I think they still have them. I know my boys used to.
Did they? Yeah.
Well, I think they have those wrestler guys.
Right. They don't have.
My kids are now teenagers like yours.
Right.
But no, I've been thinking about this a lot, as you know, and I know people have been talking to me a lot about those things and how I did it. And I often mention the things that I learned from you and the processes that I learned from you. As a matter of fact, I was having breakfast with someone today, and she was talking about being stuck and not knowing what to do. And those were some of the things that I told her. I should have said, just call Danielle.
Yeah, I know, right? Give me a call. Free consultation, give me a call.
That's right. That's right. So for the month of August, you're with me every Tuesday. And if there's particular questions, because I think we have just a few minutes left. If people have questions, they can email it to me. I will then include in our sessions together on Tuesdays. And I'm just going to reach out really quickly to our Facebook and see whether or not what's going on there. But you can continue talking while I do this,
Well, I'll say this. I said this in the last Tuesday, is that for the month of August, I'm actually doing coaching at 75% off just to get people to just to get involved and see what it works for them. We may not be that you can give me a call. We can schedule a time. You can go to my website, DanielGuttierez.com, schedule an appointment. We do a Zoom call. We fit, great. We don't, great. But I've never discounted my rate 75% off, but I'm doing it because I know we all need help. Right now is when we need a coach. I have a coach right now that's helping me with LinkedIn. I mean, the reason we need coaches is because sometimes we have our blinders on and we can't see the forest for the tree. We need someone to remove that just a little bit to see if there's possibilities there that you may not be seeing. So I would encourage you to give me a call and set up an appointment with me and see. And you will do silly stuff like going out and flying kites.
No, I think you should. But let's talk about, we only have a few minutes and I want to start today, but I want to continue next Tuesday.
Okay.
What place fear has in creating barriers for us?
That's a good question. I'm glad that we'll tackle this on the next call, but fear is a good thing and a bad thing. Fear is a way of your body letting you know, or your senses letting you know that you need to be aware. But fear that's been driven by ego is dangerous, because when you get into fear, doubt, and disbelief, you start to make decisions in a place that you don't have any power whatsoever. And that's why getting radically mindful and present in the moment and asking yourself certain questions like, am I okay right now, is imperative, because fear is always driven by the future or the past, never the present. You have to stay present. And when you're present and you know you're present, you don't feel fear, because you have the ability to act and react and make a decision that is going to propel you in the direction that you want to go in.
Daniel, we had a question in terms of your phone number. So instead of giving them your phone number, I'm just directing people to your website.
No, because I'm in Peru, remember? I'm in the Andes of Peru. I'm happy to talk with you, but we can Zoom. Just go to my website, danielguttierez.com. You'll see book an appointment, book it there, and then I'll send you a Zoom link and we can do a Zoom. Yeah.
And normally, do you spend a 30 minutes with someone just to kind of get a sense of what it is that they're looking for?
30, 40, an hour. It depends. I mean, sometimes I spend an hour and a half with someone because we really connect. You know, my goal is to make sure that we're a fit for each other and that we can get them where they want to go. You know, I'm not always a fit for people.
Yes, yes. And you know, sometimes I think, because you and I have talked about this various times, people are fearful of making changes. They want to do all this stuff, but they're fearful. And although we're going to delve right in next week on Tuesday, I feel like that's a topic that you have to start thinking about. And the 3-step process that you gave me that I use all the time, which is, you want to say the 3-step process? Or
go for it.
I was like, do I know it? So number 1, ask yourself, are you in danger?
Yes.
Is what you're thinking real, or are you making that up? Because sometimes, you know, you may be walking down the street and somebody looks at you odd, you know, your best friend, they look at you funny, and you think that all of a sudden you create a whole narrative about what's going on.
You've written a whole freaking book about that look.
When in fact, she's just thinking, oh my goodness, I have a charge in my credit card that I don't know anything about.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So ask yourself that. If the answer is no, you gotta let it go.
Yes. And that's the biggest thing about fear, is that we let our minds control the narrative that we're making up. The truth is, and I'll end with this. I used to tell people, if you ask somebody if they want to go eat dinner and they say no, that's all it was. If you say they said no because they don't like me, they didn't want to go out with me, they didn't have time, they didn't have money, that's your stuff. That's your stuff, right? And this is the thing that you and I worked on for a long time was, let's get past the things that aren't true, that we're making up. We all do it. But the less we do it and we ask ourselves those questions, which we'll go over all of them, there's actually 6 steps, but 3 questions that people can use, and it will help them go, oh my gosh, I just made up a narrative about what? You know.
Exactly. And I know that, you know, it's helped me considerably, and I'm sure it's going to help other people. Again, to contact you, danielguttierez.com. You can set up a time with him to talk and see whether or not you guys are a good fit. But thank you so much for joining us at the Royal.
I love it.
Series. Again, next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about fear and the impact it has in your life and how we can sort of go around it, right?
That's right. How we can work with it. It's always going to be there.
Okay, super. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Peace out.
That sort of dates you.